Ethan never expected that a 30-second video would turn his entire life upside down. He came home from work, opened his phone. Vass saw his own voice echoing across TikTok in a clip he never agreed to be filmed. The video was clearly cut, chopped, and twisted, yet it was already exploding with comments calling him toxic, abusive, and dangerous. Within hours, strangers tracked down his LinkedIn, spamming his workplace with demands to fire him. His inbox filled with threats, accusations, and insults from people who didn't even know his name yesterday. But the most shocking part wasn't the hatred online. It was realizing that Chloe, the woman he trusted, had secretly recorded their argument and weaponized it for views. And in their state, recording someone without consent wasn't just betrayal. It was a crime. Chloe's obsession with becoming an influencer didn't happen overnight. It started small, short vlogs about her morning routine, harmless snippets of her cooking, the kind of content anyone might post for fun. But over time, something in her shifted. She began treating every moment, every conversation, every emotion as potential material. Ethan noticed it the first time she pointed a camera at him during a private dinner and laughed it off as cute content. He didn't mind at first. But then she started filming him when he looked tired, when he wasn't prepared, when he clearly didn't want to be on camera. Whenever he asked her to stop, she would pout, say he was ruining the vibe, then post it anyway. The line between their relationship and her audience began to blur. She narrated their daily life as if she were talking to viewers, not to him. Sometimes she even exaggerated small disagreements, turning them into dramatic, story-time videos because they got engagement. Ethan tried to be patient. He liked that she had passions, and he wanted to support her dreams, but he also needed privacy, something Chloe increasingly treated as optional. He sat her down multiple times to explain how uncomfortable it made him feel. He wasn't asking her to quit, he just wanted boundaries. No filming without asking. No recording conversations. No turning their relationship into content. Chloe promised she understood. But each time she apologized, she followed it with a justification. How everyone films everything nowadays. How authenticity is the future. How, if you want to grow, you have to show real moments. Her definition of real moments, however, included Ethan's frustration, his vulnerable talks, and even arguments that should have stayed between them. The tension between them grew quietly, like steam building inside a sealed container. One night, Chloe insisted on filming a couple challenge video even though Ethan was exhausted from a 12-hour workday. He told her no, clearly and calmly. She turned on the ring light anyway. When he walked out of frame, she sighed loudly and complained to her followers that he was being negative again, ignoring the fact that he never agreed to be filmed. That was the first time Ethan felt something was truly wrong. He didn't feel like a partner anymore. He felt like a prop. Just a tool Chloe used to build an online persona that didn't reflect their reality at all. Friends of theirs also began noticing how Chloe exaggerated events for attention. At gatherings, she would secretly record snippets of conversations, hopping to turn them into comedic skits or dramatic rants later. Some friends politely asked her not to film them. Others simply stopped inviting her. But Chloe interpreted all of this as jealousy, not boundaries. To her, anything that gained views was inherently justified. And every view she got made her push harder for more. Ethan's concerns soon became fuel for Chloe's content. Every argument they had about privacy became another anecdote she could hint at online. By the time the real fight finally happened, the foundation had already been cracked for months. And Chloe, craving attention more than anything else, made the decision that would ignite the entire disaster, choosing her audience over the person who loved her. The video went viral faster than Ethan could process what was happening. He didn't even know Chloe had filmed that argument, much less uploaded it. The clip she posted wasn't just taken out of context. It was intentionally crafted to make him look like the villain. She trimmed out everything she said, trimmed out the part where he calmly asked her to stop filming, trimmed out the moment she shoved a phone in his face. What she left was a few seconds of him raising his voice in frustration, followed by her trembling lips as if she were terrified of him. She added captions like, "This is what I deal with," and when he reveals his true colors, paired with slow, dramatic music. Within the first hour, the video hit 20,000 views. By the third hour, it had exploded past 200,000. Comments poured in nonstop, each one harsher than the last. "Leave him. He's manipulating you. This guy is a danger to women." People who had never heard of him felt entitled to define his character. And then the stalking began. Strangers dug through Chloe's old posts to find his workplace. They tracked down his LinkedIn, leaving public comments accusing him of being abusive. Some messaged his boss directly, demanding action. One person even wrote a long post tagging his company, claiming employees should feel unsafe around him. Ethan felt the ground slipping beneath his feet. He tried to reason with himself, telling his racing heart that the truth would come out, that people would realize the video was fake. But the internet didn't care about truth. It cared about entertainment. And Chloe's story was entertaining. He texted her immediately, asking why she would do something so cruel. Chloe replied with a wall of messages. She said she didn't mean for it to blow up, that she just wanted to express her feelings, and that maybe this will make him reflect on how he talks to her. There was no apology. Only excuses. Meanwhile, new videos started popping up from other users. Reaction videos, breakdowns, dramatic reenactments. Some creators used his face as a thumbnail. Someone found an old photo of him from a colleague's post and reposted it with the caption, "This man." Ethan realized his reputation wasn't just being questioned. It was being rewritten. He spent hours capturing screenshots, URL links, and saving copies of every post mentioning his name. His hands shook the whole time. He didn't want to involve the police, but the situation was now way beyond a simple misunderstanding. He lived in a state where recording someone without their knowledge was illegal. And the video didn't just hurt his feelings. It threatened his job, his safety, and his future. That night, after hours of packing, Ethan made two difficult decisions. First, he filed a formal police report documenting the illegal recording and online harassment. Second, he reached out to his HR department before someone else did, explaining the situation with full transparency. He didn't sleep at all. Outside, the world looked quiet and ordinary, but online, his name was burning like wildfire. And Chloe, instead of stopping the chaos, continued watching the numbers climb on her screen, likes, shares, comments, each one pulling her deeper into the storm she had created. Chloe panicked the moment she learned Ethan had filed a police report. The confidence she showed online, crying on camera, acting wounded, leaning into the victim role, vanished instantly when real consequences appeared. She called him once, then twice, then 5 times in a row. Ethan stared at his phone vibrating nonstop, refusing to pick up. By the end of the day, she had called 19 times, each voicemail more frantic than the last. In one message, she sobbed, in another, she screamed, and in another, she tried to bargain, insisting they could fix this privately if he would just take back the report. When he continued ignoring her, she escalated. She drove to his apartment late at night and pounded on his door, begging him to open up. Ethan stayed silent inside, his heart racing as the knocking shook the hallway walls. For the first time since the video went viral, he genuinely felt unsafe. The next morning, the situation grew even worse. Chloe's mother, Sandra, called him from an unknown number. Her voice was sharp, angry, and filled with entitlement. She accused him of ruining her daughter's life, demanded he drop the report, and threatened to take things further if he didn't cooperate. Ethan hung up without responding. The pressure wasn't just coming from Chloe anymore. It was coming from her entire family. Messages from unfamiliar accounts began appearing in his inbox. People he suspected were Chloe's relatives or friends, calling him a liar, a manipulator, a monster. He blocked them all, but new accounts kept appearing. Meanwhile, Chloe tried switching tactics. She sent him voice notes pretending nothing serious had happened, saying things like, "We just had a fight," or "Couples argue, that's normal," as if rewriting the narrative could erase the evidence. But Ethan had already heard enough. He'd spent days enduring online hatred for a video that didn't even tell the truth. He wasn't going to be guilt-tripped into silence. As he dug deeper into preparing for the case, Ethan discovered something he hadn't expected. While talking to a mutual friend who reached out in concern, he learned that his situation wasn't unique. Chloe had done almost the same thing to her ex-boyfriend, Tyler. She had recorded arguments, posted them online, told half-truths, and painted herself as the victim to gain sympathy and followers. The friend revealed that Tyler's reputation was damaged for months because of her posts. He'd been forced to switch jobs after Chloe's audience flooded his company with complaints. Ethan felt his stomach drop. This wasn't an isolated mistake. This was a pattern. Chloe wasn't just a content creator. She was someone who weaponized attention. Someone who used her followers like an army whenever she felt slighted. And now that Ethan had exposed her actions to the police, she was scrambling to regain control. Her desperation grew clearer each day. More calls, more messages, more pressure from her family. At one point, she even left a handwritten note taped to his door, begging him to please stop before things get worse. But things were already worse. And Ethan knew that if he backed down now, the cycle would continue, only with someone else as her next target. For the first time since the chaos began, he felt something resembling clarity. He wasn't the one destroying Chloe's life. She had done that herself. He was simply refusing to be her next casualty. Chloe didn't slow down after Ethan filed the police report. If anything, she doubled her efforts, convinced that the only way to regain control of the situation was to bury him under a mountain of online noise. Less than 24 hours after showing up at his apartment, she posted a second video. This one was even more dramatic than the first. She positioned herself in front of soft lighting, teary-eyed, claiming that Ethan was retaliating against her for speaking her truth. She said she was scared for her safety, hinted at emotional abuse, and implied that Ethan was trying to silence her through legal threats. None of it was true. But truth didn't matter, views did. Her followers absorbed her words as gospel. Some stitched the video, calling Ethan a danger to women. Others created entire commentary clips, analyzing his supposed behavior patterns. A few even tried to diagnose him from 30 seconds of chopped footage. The noise online drowned out any attempt Ethan made to defend himself. His inbox became a war zone. Dozens of messages arrived every hour telling him he deserved to lose his job, his reputation, and his career. Some went further, telling him to disappear forever. Amid the chaos, a fundraising link suddenly appeared in Chloe's bio. She launched a GoFundMe titled "Escaping a Toxic Relationship," claiming she needed money to move out, seek counseling, and rebuild her life after emotional trauma. Her followers donated without hesitation. Comments on the page blamed Ethan for everything and encouraged Chloe to take legal action. What stunned Ethan most wasn't just the manipulation, it was how quickly people fed into it. Meanwhile, Chloe's friends organized an online campaign targeting Ethan's workplace. They spammed the company's public email with claims of misconduct, forwarded the viral video to HR, and threatened to expose the company for employing someone dangerous. Ethan's manager called him into a meeting, not to punish him, but to warn him. The company was receiving hundreds of messages a day. They needed documentation. They needed proof. Ethan provided everything: screenshots, timestamps, his police report, and his manager assured him the company would not act on unverified online drama. But the situation was tense. Every time his phone buzzed, he worried it might be HR telling him they changed their mind. Just when Ethan thought things couldn't escalate any further, Chloe filed a lawsuit against him. She submitted a handwritten claim demanding $50,000 for damaging her career opportunities as an influencer. The document was sloppy, misformatted, and filled with emotional language rather than legal reasoning. She clearly didn't consult a lawyer. The court clerk accepted it because they had to, but it was obvious the case held no legal weight. When Ethan received the notice, he almost laughed in disbelief. Her claim accused him of harassment for reporting her illegal actions, which instantly undermined her own argument. His attorney reviewed the paperwork and shook his head. Her lawsuit wasn't just flawed, it was self-incriminating. That was when Ethan decided to file a countersuit. His claims were solid: invasion of privacy, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and cyber harassment. He had evidence: screenshots, downloads of her videos, timestamps of her calls, copies of threatening messages from her friends. He wasn't lashing out. He was protecting himself. Chloe had turned the internet into a battlefield, using her followers as weapons, but Ethan was done playing defense. For the first time since this nightmare began, the law was finally on his side. Chloe's world began to collapse the moment the police officially moved forward with charges. A detective contacted Ethan to confirm the timeline, and within days, Chloe received notice that she was being criminally investigated for unlawful recording and distribution. The confidence she had displayed online evaporated instantly. She posted fewer videos, stopped replying to comments, and tried quietly deleting some of her content, but it was too late. People had already downloaded everything. When the charges became public record, her employer found out. Chloe worked in a position that required strict ethical conduct, and being criminally charged for privacy violations was enough to trigger immediate termination. She was fired the same week. News traveled fast among her friends and family. Her father, who had always been her biggest supporter, confronted her after reading the police documents. He demanded to know whether she really had recorded Ethan without his consent and then lied about him online. She didn't deny it. For the first time since the chaos began, she admitted what she'd done, not because she felt remorse, but because she realized she couldn't outrun the truth anymore. Her father stepped back from her completely, disappointed and embarrassed. Chloe tried to salvage her reputation by claiming the situation was more complicated, but people were no longer buying the narrative she had built. As investigators continued collecting evidence, even more of her actions came to light. They discovered she wasn't just posting the original video. She had also uploaded audio clips of private conversations to a small podcast she ran under a different username. Some episodes had barely 10 listeners, but each one was still a violation of the law. Even worse, she created fake social media accounts to message Vanessa, Ethan's ex-girlfriend, demanding information that could make Ethan look bad. The messages were aggressive and manipulative, and Vanessa, shocked and confused, sent screenshots directly to Ethan's attorney. Each new revelation deepened Chloe's legal trouble. Investigators documented everything. Every message, every fake account, every reposted audio file. The case against her grew stronger with each passing day. Meanwhile, Ethan tried to return to some semblance of normalcy, but the damage lingered. He still received occasional messages from strangers repeating lies they had heard months earlier. He stayed off social media entirely, focusing on his job and on healing from the emotional wreckage Chloe had created. Chloe, on the other hand, spiraled. The loss of her job, the mounting legal fees, and the distancing of friends who realized she had secretly recorded them too left her isolated. Some of her former friends, publicly stated they no longer wanted anything to do with her once they learned she had been mining their private conversations for content. She tried to apologize to a few of them, but they ignored her calls. Her GoFundMe stalled, her followers dwindled, and for the first time, she faced the consequences of her actions without an audience cheering her on. As court dates approached, Chloe's desperation grew. She sent Ethan one final message, a long, rambling apology mixed with excuses and self-pity. Ethan didn't respond. The time for conversations had passed. The only thing left was the reckoning she had brought upon herself, one upload at a time. The courtroom was silent when the judge called the case, but the tension in the air felt heavy enough to crush bone. Ethan sat calmly beside his attorney, hands folded, eyes steady. Across the room, Chloe looked nothing like the confident influencer she once portrayed herself as. Her hair was unstyled, her clothes wrinkled, and her eyes carried the weight of months of lies unraveling in public. She avoided Ethan's gaze completely. From the moment the hearing began, it was clear the evidence was stacked against her. The prosecutor methodically presented the original unedited video, 40 minutes of normal, human disagreement, where Ethan repeatedly asked her not to record him. Then they played the viral TikTok clip side by side on the courtroom screen. The contrast was like night and day. The raw footage showed frustration, yes, but also restraint and clear requests for privacy. The TikTok version showed a monster Chloe invented. Gasps spread through the small audience as the manipulation became undeniable. Chloe's face turned pale, and she bowed her head as the prosecutor asked whether she had edited the clip intentionally. She whispered yes. Her attorney placed a hand on her arm, trying to keep her from crumbling entirely, but the admission was already out. The prosecutor then introduced the podcast audio files, the fake accounts she used to message Vanessa, and screenshots of her attempts to pressure Ethan into withdrawing the police report. Every piece of evidence painted the same picture. Chloe had engaged in a prolonged, deliberate pattern of harassment and deceit. When it was Ethan's turn to testify, he spoke quietly and without anger. He didn't embellish anything. He simply explained how the video affected his career, his safety, and his mental well-being. The judge listened intently, occasionally glancing at Chloe, whose shoulders shook lightly as she wiped at her eyes. Her tears didn't sway the court. When she finally took the stand, Chloe tried to claim she didn't understand the law and thought recording was harmless. But the prosecutor pointed to her previous behavior with her ex-boyfriend, showing that this wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a repeated pattern. Chloe broke down, admitting she just wanted people to listen to her. But the judge remained unmoved. After closing arguments, the judge looked at both parties with a stern but composed expression. She stated that Chloe had violated privacy laws, defamed Ethan publicly, and weaponized social media in a reckless and harmful manner. She emphasized that online behavior does not exist in a vacuum, and that real people suffer when someone manipulates public perception for personal gain. The sentencing that followed was decisive. Chloe received 100 hours of community service, 6 months of probation, a $500 fine, and a court order to remove all online content related to Ethan. In the civil case, she was ordered to pay $15,000 in damages. A 2-year no-contact order was also issued. Chloe stood there trembling, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned white. Ethan didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He simply breathed deeply, freely, for the first time in months. As the courtroom emptied, Chloe remained frozen in her seat, staring at the floor. Her entire online persona had collapsed in a single morning. Ethan walked out into the sunlight, unsure of what came next, but certain of one thing: the truth had finally been restored. When Ethan stepped outside the courthouse, the world felt strangely quiet. He looked up at the sky, as if noticing its color for the first time in months. The weight that had pressed on his chest for so long finally loosened. Leaving behind a steady calm, he barely recognized. Messages from friends and coworkers began to appear on his phone, but he didn't open them yet. For the moment, he just wanted stillness. He walked to his car slowly, breathing in the cool air and letting the noise of the city fade into the background. There was no triumph in his expression, only relief. He knew healing wouldn't happen overnight, but he also knew he could finally move forward without fear. Chloe's choices had left deep scars, yet they no longer defined his days. He decided he would take a break from social media entirely, choosing peace over engagement. The first step toward rebuilding his life would be reclaiming his privacy and rediscovering parts of himself he had set aside during the chaos. As he drove away from the courthouse, the city lights flickered past the window like tiny reminders of new beginnings. For the first time in a long while, Ethan believed his life could truly start again.